All right. Now I guess it's my intro part, isn't it?
Oh, do you want me to intro you, mate?
I think
Intro
it's my
the intro.
podcast. Intro the intro. Welcome to... what is it?
Welcome to Damo's podcast.
All right, yeah. Welcome to the Peace, Love and Veggies podcast. I have joined by two special guests on a spontaneous podcast.
Am I the guest or the host?
You...
Co-host.
Co-host? Yeah, I reckon
You're
you
just
and I...
supporting act.
There's more than one guest here, Damo. We've got an audience of children and non-children. So heck, mate, we're in for a special treat. Esme's DJ for the podcast. She's running her hands all over the equipment at the moment. I'm on edge. I'm nervous, but I'm not more nervous than the topic you're going to talk about.
Oh, don't say that. Well, the two beautiful people that I have here are actually my best mate, Travis, and my beautiful wife, Michaela. And we've just been on quite an interesting journey. We have a newborn, don't we, Michaela?
Mm-hmm. 2 weeks today.
2 weeks? Name?
Solomon John.
Wow, Solomon John.
Solomon John. Sol.
Sol?
Sol?
We sticking with that?
Well, his official name's Solomon. But yeah, Sol.
It's just quite weird to do this with you. Literally, I think it was it's currently 4 o'clock on a Friday, and 3 hours before, Trav finally got back to me after, I think it might have been 10 days, thinking that I thought he was coming on the weekend a week ago. And he said, I said to him, I'd love to gift Michaela an episode or an interview as such to go through and I guess talk about what was quite a unique experience that Michaela and I experienced. And here we are. Trav said, that's a great idea. And
I felt like I wanted to preface because I felt pretty nervous about this interview because the topic's not taboo. Well, I guess it is a bit taboo that it's not the traditional ways you've mentioned. I guess we'll highlight what we're talking vaguely about, and that's that we chose to free birth, which means that we didn't have any medical support throughout our birthing process. Am I talking to you?
Us,
I guess so, us. And so I felt a little bit nervous because what we chose to do is true to our values and what felt right for us, and we informed ourselves to be able to live authentically, I guess. But I just didn't want to offend anyone or say anything that's too controversial. So this is what we're sharing was my experience and what was right for us. And I just want to make sure that it's received as this was for us, and this isn't me telling anyone what they should do. It's just my personal beliefs. So I guess I just, put that forward. Yeah.
Yeah, like our little testimony. Yeah.
Yeah.
This gift is more so it's just going, hey, this is quite a unique experience. How beautiful. Let's record it. And
It was just why?
Why? I feel like there was a lot of complexities into where you arrived to such a unique path of things. I think it started early on where the traditional conversation around childbirth is quite, I'm going to say, traumatic. A lot of people talk about like pain, recovery and disappointments and interventions and things that didn't go the way that they want. And I just started asking the questions like, why is this commonly happening? How can we avoid it? And I guess that just opened up channels of information that allowed me to see things differently. And then when I was pregnant with my daughter, my firstborn, we had
our firstborn, just to preface.
Our firstborn.
There was another father.
We had already embarked on doing things a little bit differently, having a home birth, and we had a midwife present for that. And so we went down the traditional prenatal care of going to the appointments, checks, and fulfilling status quo criteria. And I feel like even in that process in the very beginning, I didn't resonate with it. I was just like, I don't need to be here. I don't want to be checking for things that I know aren't there. Like, I feel well. I trust my body. I trust the design of birth, that it's been a successful process since the age of time, hence why humanity's here. And I found it annoying going to all the blood test appointments and this and that. I just was like, I said to Damien in our first pregnancy that I wonder how little we can get away with for the next one, less involvement, because it just didn't feel necessary. So anyway, we had a wonderful birth with Esme at home from start to finish. She was born here. And we did have what was diagnosed as we hemorrhaged. We had blood loss, and out of precaution, we were transferred to the hospital. And in the hospital, I think that's another thing that doesn't resonate with me, is my skin crawls being in a hospital. I'm very uncomfortable and I don't want to be there. So I guess I'm trying to be in a place that feels good for me and is in alignment with what's good for me. And so when we had the hospital experience, it was good in some ways. Like, we were taken care of, you get fed, people are checking, you're reassured that everything's on track and whatever else. But there were a lot of things like, they're checking the hearing and they're pricking the foot and they're whipping the baby away, and you can't sleep with your baby there, and don't hold him in that way, and you've got to burp him this way and put your boob in his mouth that way. Like, it just felt very intrusive for me, that I trust myself, I'm confident in my decisions and things like that. I was like, I didn't really want to be manipulated in this area that I feel very much ownership of. Like, my child is my child and I should be able to raise them in what according to our values. And so I think that even solidified for me in that process, that I was like, again, I don't want to be in the medical structure. And I think now, having our second birth experience, it highlighted even more so other reasons that I didn't want medical support. But I guess we can expand on that. And so ultimately that led us to free birthing our second child, Solomon.
I have a question.
Yes.
You said at the start, like, you hear a lot of traumatic experiences. Where did you hear that from?
Well, I'm a hairdresser, so I speak to a lot of women, and I've been doing it for 15 years. And I think even speaking to friends that have had kids, or like even hearing a lot of our mothers would have similar stories where, it was so painful, or I had so many stitches, or I tore, or they pulled the baby out of me. Like, and I was just like, that doesn't sound desirable.
Most people hear a traumatic experience, especially if it's anything to do with, if at any point in time their life or their child's life is deemed to be at risk, they just want to minimise risk. They think, okay, traumatic, if there's a percentage chance something could go wrong, I won't do it, right? But you have a more fearless outlook, and why is that?
Yeah, and that's through education, not naivety. Like, I didn't go into it just saying like, stuff it, I'm just going to do hope for the best. I very much wanted to be informed and do my research. And the more, this is the thing, we've got statistics for medical, and that's pretty much the only route that we have, because it's the only monitored system. So they have statistics on, but the statistics based are on medical. So then when you go to other areas such as free birthing or even just home birthing, there's low statistics on it because it's not a monitored, regulated space. And so, but the more, even if it's word of mouth and testimonies, which again, if we go back to the original times, that's what it was, storytelling and people's experiences and mothers and grandmothers supporting. And you just time and time again, there's many platforms of holistic routes of birthing, and the positive outcomes are significant. But again, the statistics aren't there. We just have medical. So even there was lots of things that I had all around me in my free birthing experience, people coming to me with their concerns. And you can Google and find different statistics, and it will even say, according to this system from this data pool, and it's just not outside of that. So I don't know if I'm explaining myself properly, but
you felt like that.
So mitigating risk. So what I learned from, in essence, what it boils down to, less is more. And the original system of childbirth, which is your body giving birth, has been a successful route. And there's a lot of conversation around, I mean, if I can get asked more specific questions, I feel like I could answer them a little bit better. But like examples, I had a client say to me, who was a GP, well, how are you going to have an episiotomy at home? I'm like, I don't want an episiotomy. And she said to me,
what's an episiotomy?
Where they cut you to make more room, to essentially make the gap bigger to come out. And she said, the babies are too big to come out of there on their own, Michaela. I said, what are all the animals doing out there? You know, someone coming and cutting them open to birth. She says, don't liken yourself to a baby cow, Michaela. And I was like, wow, we are just mammals. This is how we're designed to birth. So that would be one example. And I mean, the same woman, again, GP, had said to me, women die all the time in birth. I said, all the time? Like, what is the statistic of that? And I think in particular, you'll find if we're talking about the people that are having more complications are the large majority of our population worldwide of people that are living in poverty with dirty water and lack of clean and food and all these things. There, of course, there's going to be problems. But for the average, Western living person, they're not, we've got access to all the things we need to have a healthy natural birth. So the statistics, don't count.
So the first birth with Esme, it was well, you can't call it a free birth because you had a midwife, but you did it at home, and it was just the three of you, and it, by all means, a success. I mean, there was hemorrhaging, but a successful birth and everything like that. The second time around, you're like, screw the midwife, Damo, buckle up, mate.
So it wasn't screw the midwife. We had an amazing midwife, and it was more that because we had now got this diagnosis, you're high risk, we weren't eligible to have that experience. So it immediately meant we had to birth in the system.
And neither did private ones want to have Michaela.
They don't want to take on the risk. But again, I just talk about statistics because when you're in the medical system, there has to be an average to manage the masses. So the example would be, okay, we'll talk about hemorrhaging specifically. It's 250 ml blood loss could be lethal for one person, and the next could literally lose a litre and feel okay and be all right. It's like everyone has different experiences. You might have lactose intolerance, everyone's body is different. And so the truth behind hemorrhage is it's blood loss with symptoms. And so my experience, and I've actually had more than one experience with blood loss, and this was the only time there was a medical person present to actually label it as a risky situation. And because we did have a miscarriage before Esme and we lost a lot of blood then. And I would say fivefold what I lost with Esme. And even then, it was at the very tail end that there was symptoms of I've lost too much. And even then when I did go to the hospital for support, because I want to clarify, I'm not against medical support. I think it's vital. People need this and doctors save lives, 100%. But I think the general is people position themselves in childbirth immediately handing over, I'm broken, this is risky, and everyone could possibly die. I mean, that's generalizing because I know people, we're talking about the 1%, people were like, the 1% isn't even worth the risk, and I honour and respect that for sure. I'm losing track, but get me back on track. The question was, with symptoms. So even though I lost a lot of blood, even then I didn't need any transfusions or any additional support. It was just bed rest and your blood will build again. So I learned my own capacity in that space as well, which also gave me a form of logical confidence as well. So that would be an example of whatever.
Yeah.
So excuse my baby brain, okay?
No,
2 weeks.
It's interesting. And so kind of, I guess, you weren't eligible for having a midwife to be part of it.
Yes.
And at that point, you're like, well,
what are my options?
Well, will it be okay if we don't have a midwife? And what was that process like?
Yeah, and so I absolutely wanted to be informed. I didn't want to be a fool about it. So I very much took like a high grade course that was very informative from like a midwife level that will cover every risk, versions of normal and everything from pre to post care, how to heal naturally and all of the things. So I definitely prepared myself, and even things like we knew what my risk category was, and we very much had a playbook for the day that we're very informed about, like visuals of how much does this blood look like and what do we do in this process and how do we mitigate those risks.
So you basically are learning midwifery 101 in the lead up to be like, is this a skill set we can learn and be confident about on game day?
Which, I mean, I did the homework for and relayed on the essentials to Damien, but he absolutely took them on board and he frankly held that responsibility very much so in the birth. And reminding me of things that I wasn't in the space to think about. I just thought it was helpful.
You know what I remember? I remember before you gave birth to Esme, it must have been around here for dinner one night, and we were talking about like the hypotheticals of childbirth, etc. And I was like, no way would I be in the room. Like, nah, I wouldn't be there. And it was your response talking about how, no, I want Damo there. Like, I want him to, his confidence there to reassure me, blah, blah, blah. That kind of changed my positioning on how I thought about that and what the role is of it.
Well, it was more so that it takes two to conceive, and therefore Damien absolutely must be there because it's part of the whole package, the whole journey. And I think there is such a transformation, particularly in a woman giving birth, especially naturally in its full experience. And I think even people that have, cesareans and stuff do say that. They go, I kind of feel like I was robbed a bit of the sensation and the experience. And that's not everyone, but I've certainly heard that I think even for the man, I mean, Damien, I'd love to hear your side of it, of course, where you've talked about how you view me and how you feel about children and life itself after seeing birth happen naturally, right? What is,
I like how you asked, can you be more specific in
You
your question?
and I avoided it. Sorry.
Give me a broad question based there. Which topic would you like me to touch on?
Well, Travis was saying that, I wanted you there, and I said there's a reason for that. And I'm asking, like, how do you feel about the birthing process now that you've witnessed it versus if you'd maybe missed it,
I think, I find it's an honour, right? Like we've chosen to be together and we've committed. And then I guess that next step of you going, I'd love you to be there. And I've always just been a person like, take an opportunity and let's see what happens. And
let's hope it works.
Yeah, let's hope it works out. I'm very grateful that you did all that study as such and then relayed what you needed to me, because that gave me confidence. Did I have all the confidence? I had the confidence in you. And I think as a male in the relationship, as the masculine, I think my role to be a stronghold for you or a rock in that situation, I think I played that role and let you do your thing, which like humans are, I guess, we're here to survive, aren't we? And so we fight for survival. Hence we're just sitting here however long with 80 billion people around us. Are
you saying, like, in reference to the birthing process, that it's designed to be successful?
Absolutely. We're fighters. Like, humans adapt to any situation. I'm in the fitness industry, and so you can you witness journeys or hear journeys, and you're like, wow, like that's amazing. That's what you did to your body for so long, and you're still going. And that's just a testament to our own bodies. Like we adapt to situations and we will do our best to survive until we don't, unfortunately. But I think, that I guess leads on to birthing. And when you, did I know you were going to say, I want you there? I knew I was going to be there. I never knew that we were going to have
a home birth. Or Sol?
Oh, home birth, yeah. At the start, that was never...
When I got pregnant.
Yeah, I'm not one to look too far into the future either. So it's just kind of... Well, Trav, a couple of months ago, I said, what's your 5-year plan? And he goes, mate, I don't have a plan that far ahead. Yeah. And that threw me right off. I don't know, has it changed?
Gosh, no, mate, no. You plan? No, you just navigate what feels directionally right, and then alter if it doesn't.
And that's the cool part, right? Because I guess maybe I've been doing that for a while now, because it's just like see an opportunity, take the opportunity, be present, be as present as you can be. We're slightly looking ahead. Maybe I'll shoot myself one day in the foot for being way too present and enjoying just weather or whatever these little things are.
I don't need to backtrack, but do you remember when I decided to home birth with Esme? Because I don't.
No, I don't even know why that idea came. I didn't even know it was a thing, to be fair.
To be honest, I didn't know that it was just going to be you two until afterwards.
What, with Sol? With Sol.
Yeah, with Sol. And I also, this is going to sound strange, but I also didn't even feel comfortable asking the questions in some ways, because I thought the moment I ask questions about this, it's going to seem like I'm judgmental.
And that was a really hard space for me to navigate, because I didn't want to have to feel like I had to justify things, and I knew people's questions were concerning and full of love, but it felt fear-mongering. I felt judged, and that was the hardest part about the whole journey, is choosing different. I had to own, if I want to live according to what's true to me, that's looking more and more like not the status quo. And I've got to get comfortable with not being in complete agreement with people, but we can be accepting of people. And I think the more I changed my attitude to and it really only happened at the end, where I was like, he or she doesn't have to have the same opinion as me, but we can be okay with that. The more I felt free of people's judgments, because I feel like what you give is what you get, you know? So it's been such a learning process doing this whole journey the way that we chose, because there was so many elements that we evolved outside of just birth in ourselves, you know?
Yeah, I think, it's interesting, especially that space where people start to, and as we said, we understand, we're so grateful to be surrounded with people who genuinely care and have concern about us.
Yeah.
Even to our parents, where they raise concerns, which is beautiful. Like, we're so grateful that people want to say, you know, are you okay? Like, is this the right way? Do you have an option B? What is this? You know, what are you going to do if this happens? And so,
but sitting behind me is the most risk-averse person I know. My mother.
I also feel there's this, I know it's common in the realm where people free birth, that we feel frustrated because we have a conviction that this is the best way for, as I said, for what feels right for us. Someone feels safer in the hospital, then that is the best way for you. But for those that feel that it's right for them, there's so much criticism. There is a lot of criticism and judgment. We didn't experience that in our circle. But it's frustrating because one person that can receive a whole bunch of medical intervention that sometimes and often, from what I've heard, is unsolicited, that can be plastered everywhere to be like, I, went and did all the drugs and just got it cut out because I didn't want to experience the feels or whatever. And I really wouldn't be careful. I'm not judging. Everyone can make their own choices for whatever reason. All I'm saying is, but I get judged for wanting to do things as it was intended, as nature designed. That's frustrating, that one person isn't being judged and the other is. So I think that is where the safest choice was often just to be a little bit vague and just say, yeah, we're having a home birth again, because people were familiar with that choice the first time, and just kind of keep your cards close to your chest. And again, we've said now we feel that we can be open about it because we've had the success story, which is again
God, God willing, it was beautiful. It was amazing. And that was, we're really grateful for that. It was interesting, not backtracking at all, but on the same topic, it made me think about, like, I don't know where I learned this, maybe 7, 8 years, whatever. A while, like, in my adult life, I've really learned to know who to talk to and who to be vulnerable with, and how much information do I give to someone? Because only until, if I give too much, I will get backlash. And so there's like this
and it can make you go off path a little.
Absolutely. And it's weird, you're going to love this, but it was thinking, I thought about cricket in the same way of going out to bat. It's like, how much do you want to hear all these thoughts and negative and noise? And it literally is just noise. Where it wasn't affirming what you're doing or that, right, have you been practicing enough? Is that technique, good enough to face this bowler or whatever it is? So it was quite challenging to just kind of, I guess slow down and not speak so much. To hold your cards with you and, choose your circle,
and we
who to share. And we did. Toward the end, definitely. Well, when I started saying in the gym and people were very kind to me, going like,
why isn't this
where's this sucker? I'll just give it a whole it's not here. And then I quickly move on to the next person and help out because I didn't want to hear it, unfortunately. But again, as I said, it was all concern and love, which is beautiful, but it was such an interesting...
How did those conversations go? Because I imagine, I don't quite understand how all this stuff works. I'm sure one day I will, but the later you are, the more worried people get. And is that because the protocol is that you're getting juiced after a certain period of time if you're going by the book?
Myself, because it's like, I'm not naive. It's like, I know what people say and it's there for a reason. I'm not saying, it's not true, but there's like two sides to every coin, right? And I even Googled, it was like, what is the concern with going over? And there's two sides of it. Stillborn increases, and they believe that's due to placenta breakdown, meaning it's not functioning functioning and giving the baby what it needs essentially. But it literally says, well, we don't know for sure. Like there's no evidence on that. And then it also, I said, well, how many children actually get born beyond 42 weeks? And it said 1 in 1,000. And I was like, oh, okay. And then it said straight after, but if medical intervention didn't happen, they believe it would be 1 in 40. But the standard is that you will not go beyond 42 if you're in any form of medical care, which is the vast majority, right?
And the crazy part is we went to 16 days.
16 days, so 2 days over.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was like the last 3 days were, I mean, you don't know the day. We're talking all in hindsight.
Yeah.
But yeah, when we had Sol on Saturday morning, and maybe it was Wednesday where you came up to me, perhaps like, all right, I'm letting this go. I can't.
Well, I didn't say I'm letting this go. It was more me expressing intense frustration because I was so over the wait and I was so over the conversation, people coming and asking. I was like, yeah, I was over it. But even Damien said, like, what are you going to do? You're not going to go get intervention now when you've literally been off the car. Like, I didn't even take a pregnancy test. Like, I was as free as it comes. It's like, what? So now I'm just going to go in and say, drug me up, let's do this thing. Like, so, and Damien was reassuring. He's like, the baby's going to come. Like, it will happen regardless. Like, you just have to trust. And I think this is the thing. We're in a world where we want quick results, we want reassurance, and we want to be in control. And that's another part that we developed largely. This is like, we're just surrendering to life at this point, you know? And 100%, I always preface, if I wasn't feeling well, I had sensation, I didn't feel the baby with Rara, I would go. But the reality is everything was textbook, and I'd done this before. I'm very much educated, so I knew what to be looking out for as points of concern, and everything was peachy. So I didn't have any reason to be fearful of anything happening, you know? So I guess but it was just hard psychologically and physically. Like, I was heavy and big, and it's peak summer and all the things, and I was just like, just over it. So, but again, Damo even held space in there, and that was amazing that you in the place was like, it's cool, babe. It's cool to feel the feels. It's going to happen, and you've got this. And that was, I needed that, I guess, you know. Yeah.
And so you give birth to Sol, and it's like a 4 a.m. ish delivery. 4:45 a.m. delivery, and I think the privilege of meeting Sol. I think 2 days later, fresh baby. The first time I've seen a little fresh baby. They're blue. No, it was not blue. It was squishy. It's interesting because like you were both absolutely glowing more than I'd expected. I didn't know what to expect really, but it was amazing how much life the both of you had, and so much so that Damo, you're like, I want to do a podcast and talk about this. I loved that. So mate, check out these videos. Like
straight away, show a full frontal of me.
So Damo, why were you like in particular just so keen to share what you felt?
I'm tearful because I was so proud of myself to, I guess jump in with my wife and go, yeah,
let's do the hard thing.
This. How beautiful. And it was the most intimate experience I've ever.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about sex or making love as we say that making love or having sex. But I would say that was the most intimate I've ever been with Michaela in a moment where you are she is at her most vulnerable, and the trust she gives me to say, I trust you. And for her to just let go enough that she let out a massive roar. And this is the highlight of the whole birth, really. That leads me to there, is that our neighbour Jamie, I won't say her last name.
We'll tag him.
We'll tag him in the snow. But we did tell him that we're having a home birth, but he messaged me. Or he messaged us at 5:30 a.m. and said, congratulations yet? ? And Michaela and I just laughed because...
The poor guy.
If you have been around or seen birthing before, obviously when the baby's coming out, there's a lot of energy a woman lets go, and typically it is in yelling form. Yeah. And so he was woken up, he said...
by what he thought was a murder happening next door, he said.
Well, murder happening. And he said a cockroach came in, and there was a lovely lady next to him saying, is that a motorbike? And so, all that is just...
it made us laugh.
But you got a text message 40 minutes after delivering Sol.
So it obviously went quiet, and he's like, I guess the baby was born.
Good morning.
Good morning. Yeah.
Oh, God. And speaking of intimacy, it's like that is true because I was a lot more composed with Esme, but I believe that's because there was 2 midwives in the room at the time. My sister was here, so there was a lot of people in the room, and I think there's an element of consciousness that you're like kind of holding it together. And I can't help but think, you know, that is all part of the physiological birth, that when you're in your safe space, when everything's comfortable and you're feeling loved and you're, you know, that is all part of what I believe led to me not hemorrhaging this birth. It led to me not tearing the way that I did with Esme. And so the recovery and I think the glow came from the fact that we were truly just like undisturbed in this space of just euphoria of doing this phenomenal thing that humans are designed to do. And because it was undisturbed, we had all...
woman, that is, woman.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, not,
yeah.
I
Well,
can't
it's all,
do it.
we're all
I
part.
can't.
I can't have a baby without you either, right? So it's like, I say...
Thank you. I appreciate
well, people,
it.
you say, I'm having a baby. Men say, I'm having a baby all the time. And I'm thinking, all right. but my point is, I was a lot more vocal, and I think that came down to, I'm like, I can just let go. And right now, this feels like a good solid raw, right? So,
Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess that glow, man, yeah, it was just like it's an honour to be so vulnerable with your partner or your wife or however you want to say it. It's just like that long-term commitment. We've been married nearly 10 years, 9 years this year? 10? One of those.
Yeah, actually,
10 this year?
No, it's 9 actually.
9,
Yeah,
2015. Yeah. So 9 years. Yeah.
It's like, I swear you got married in 2014. I believe it.
I always have to do by day. 3.141. Okay.
But I think it's that all that build up. Like we have this, we've had an amazing life so far together, and we've had an amazing life I guess. As I said, I think it's just the honour, like you just have that your wife. And frick, I didn't deliver anything. I was just there, and I witnessed again my child come out, and we have it on film. And the funny part is we had like a.
You know, it's the exact same cry as Esme's.
Perhaps,
if we had more footage of Esme's, the sound and the cry that you made was exactly the same.
Yeah, I know. With Esme, my heart literally felt like it skipped a beat. With Solomon, I had the same cry. It didn't really skip a beat, but it's amazing what happens when you just let go. And emotion just comes there. Amazing. Maybe one day we'll post the video, hey? No.
No chance, mate.
This podcast is going.
You go from 50 views to 0.
Or maybe the other way around and post the video.
But to answer, I think to answer your question about where that glow came from, I think it's just that whole. It's so beautiful, and intimacy was what it was. It's just.
Yeah.
It is so cool.
And I think the other thing is, like, we did the hard work with Izzy, like having it at home, unmedicated, untouched, you know, and then we didn't really get the benefit of the aftermath in just being able to be at, like, for me, that's what's important, like having the food that I like, being in my bed, like having my clothes and not being told what I have to do here and there. And so and obviously being beep, and having cannulas in and then being told you have to pee every hour. Like, come on, I just gave birth, you know? So it was nice to then do the thing and then have the privilege of being home. That's why we did the thing, to be at home, you know? And so there was this, like, just euphoria of, like, we did this thing and it's simple and it went to how it should and we've got this beautiful baby and it's just us. Like, I was very much in logical mindset with Esme afterwards as well. Like, okay, we're going to do this and how do you feel about this? And you've got to sign this consent and we're going to do this to you now. And it was very like I had to think and be in my mindset, you know, but this was like I could just exist in nature.
Yeah, it was quite bizarre. At 7 a.m. we were lying in bed and I was like, so what do we do? Do I check his hearing? No, not really. Do I scream in his ear? No. It was just so bizarre. Like, and I was like, I'm going to text some people. Yeah. Like, I sent all the text shit out to our close friends and family.
It's interesting hearing you talk about I suppose the comfort of being in your own home and doing that. speaking of judgment and everything, I think there's a lot less judgment when people choose to say, be at home for their last days of life. People understanding there's, people it's a vulnerable moment. You want to be in a place that's comfortable. You want to be around family, and you don't want that awkwardness of the clinical feeling of being in a hospital where it's clean and you smell like it's sick and there are strange people around you who are sick. Yeah. So I can relate to that part.
So I guess it's nice to be able to share that there are, and for me, this is the testimony of like, there's always a way to follow your heart. I guess that's what it is. Like, I knew I wanted to have an undisturbed natural birth. How can we make this happen? Okay, information, set up, and we had other things in place. Like we had our ambulance cover. We know our nearest place and how long it would take to get there, X, Y, Z. So it's like there was, everything was in place. But it's like, I think there's always a way for something if you really desire it. And, you're talking about, who you let into your space and negative and positivity. Like the placebo effect is a real thing. So it's like, sure, it might be an echo chamber and information bias, but it's like how much you position your body to believe that this is safe, this is true, this is real. Like
your mindset can carry you.
Physiological things all the time,
Well, we said two things, like breath and mindset.
Is the success to having a more comfortable birth? Because that was even my tools with Esme.
Or anything, to be fair.
Oh, anything, actually. Yeah,
anything.
Sure.
It can set you up for anything for life. I think about when I'm facing a bowler.
Yeah.
My mindset going into a game.
Yeah.
It's just crows. I'm talking about cricket. Thanks. Because I haven't been playing much.
So it's the game of life.
This is the game of life. Viv will love that.
Yeah.
And Charlie, yeah. Thanks. And so... Thanks for distracting me there.
Sorry.
One interesting anecdote that you shared when I was here a couple of weeks ago was, Brode shared a story about how her sister would have loved to have had a home birth, but there was a complication in the sense that the umbilical cord was around the neck, and so she had to go into hospital or something like that. And I didn't understand the education, but your response kind of told me that you'd absolutely done your research and had thought about these sorts of risks in preparation, everything like that. Do you want to share that?
Well, it's funny when some people have asked me, I'm like, so what's your concern? And a lot of the time they're like, they don't actually know. They don't know. They're just spoon-fed that it's dangerous. Mm-hmm. And then you naturally go, if it's dangerous, I'll go to the person that can protect me from it. But the protection comes at a cost sometimes, such as, you take the antibiotics to fix the sickness. Sure, that's great. And we don't want you to be sick. And if there's a place for that as well. But also no one's talking about your gut microbiome being destroyed and how that takes time to build up, and then your immune system compromises the process. So it's like it comes at a compromise to a degree. It's like, we'll give you an episiotomy to get it out quicker. Okay, but now the cuts, so there's these things.
Everything, right?
Everything comes with a cost of an extra. And so that was another thing. It's like, sure, is the hospital the safest place? Because sometimes you're I'm going to go on a rant, so I'm trying not to go there. You're asking me about the education.
Yeah, even in the specific case of like, an umbilical.
You want me to share about the umbilical cord?
Yeah, the umbilical cord being around a baby's neck. And you said you'd watched hundreds of videos of birth.
They come out with it and you just unwrap it.
Yeah, now, the reason being because...
Well, so there's a couple of things. I mean, it's covered in actual, like a gel of sorts to make it super slimy, super, it moves. I've seen literal knots in umbilical cords, and you just slide it up and down like it's stretchy and movable right there, like this. And they're in this tiny little squish space. So, of course, then they move around and the cord is long and it gets under limbs and in this and that. But the concern is they say, it's around its neck. Mm-hmm. But they're not breathing through their mouths in utero. The cord is their life. Their oxygen. So it's like it doesn't matter that it's around their neck until they come out and the cord is cut. That's when and if it was still strangled then, no, it's not, it's, they're not going to breathe. But so I don't know, and I'm not medically, practitioner or anything like this. So maybe a doctor could come to me and say, well, this is the exact reasons. But time and time again, I've seen it and this course will tell you, and, different streams will go, it's not a problem because
and which I naively didn't even
think about that.
think about or know that. But even like the logistics of home birthing, it's like you're in a water, what do you call it?
Just a birthing pool.
Birthing pool.
Any pool you want.
And the baby obviously shoots into the pool.
Yeah.
And like,
it can't breathe.
His psychology is like, oh my God, it's going to drown, but it's not breathing.
9 months. It's like, that's its happy place. Yeah.
But that was amazing because obviously I witnessed a different angle to you, and I mentioned afterwards, I was like, it's interesting, you can see where intervention does happen because
it looks scary.
As a bloke, I'm looking on, geesh.
Yeah.
Right, his head is halfway out.
Yeah.
That doesn't look very comfortable. I mean, if anything's cause for concern about an umbilical cord, his head's like this around the vagina.
It's
so you're like, my gosh. Like, and the thing is, I spoke to someone, they said it took 6 minutes and the baby spent 6 minutes with his head at its biggest point whatever, 10 centimeters dilated. Oh, so you just think, wow. Like, and then you're watching, and I'm watching my son, Sol, his mouth open and what's that stuff called? You called it?
Some kind of mucus.
Yeah, we'll say mucus. But anyway, it's just going in and out of his mouth, and I'm like, oh
like
my
a jellyfish.
gosh.
Did you know it was your son at that point? Like from looking at his head, are you like, he's a boy?
Okay, right. I say that hypothetically, but it was amazing. 10 weeks in, Michaela tried to, ask God 3 times.
No, I didn't ask. That was the point.
Oh.
I was just hanging out about my business and I felt like I literally audibly heard God say, you're having a boy. And I was like, wait, what? Like, number one, we didn't want that information.
Yeah, we were like, let's keep it a secret. And then she came back with me.
And I was like, well, I can't hide it. This is what's happened. This is what's going down. So from 10 weeks on, we've been calling baby Sol. And even when Sol came out, oh, Sol, this and that, da-da-da. And then I was like, I don't know, maybe 20 seconds in, was it? Maybe 30 seconds?
Yeah, no, if you want to.
I was like... I just checked, and before I even checked it, it's like, it's a boy. I was like, oh, wow. So this is
with the biggest balls ever.
Yeah. He's very male proud.
Yeah, all babies apparently.
Yeah, I reckon it would be.
That's got my ego.
I see. It's lovely to hear your retelling of events, and I learned a lot via your experience, if that makes sense. And I appreciate your willingness to share it.
Thank you. I think, I don't know if we should do it, but I did want to preface that it's like, I am fully aware, as we've mentioned through, being informed, that there are true, real life risks in giving birth. And I think if it wasn't for my faith, and if it wasn't for, primarily my faith, actually, having this confirmation that it felt so true in me that this was my path, I would probably say that it would be wisest to have some form of medical support. Even though I do fully believe the process can be a hands-off, beautiful, untouched thing, and it would be ideal if you could have medical support and knowledge that you didn't have to be in that space for your birth, as a like an insurance, like have it behind, but hands off. That would be the ultimate arrangement. And I've met a couple of people in this journey that are home birthing that have that kind of support. They're like, nature's good, I'll be here to support you if you need it, but you go do you. And I think that's beautiful and awesome that there is a support space of marrying the two together. So I'm not true advocating that nobody should get medical and that it's a completely foolproof process, because it is not. But I think it's also approaching the concept that death happens at any point in life. And what I've learned through what I've researched is the risk of things going wrong is far, far less when you literally do nothing. And it seems to be that when people have all these, I hemorrhaged and all these things, it was because they were stressed and drugged up and, they weren't in their natural environment. All these things happen. And yes, they bled, So I guess my point is...
I think, you can either be a victim or take responsibility.
Right.
And that applies more to anything, right?
Yes.
And I think the medical system's there for emergencies.
Yes.
And bloody use them. If use them.
And that's what I meant by about life and death. Like it could happen at home. It happens in the hospitals. It happens, and you've just got to decide what your path is. Yeah. And I think that's what I said to you. I've come to peace with the fact that, everyone can have an outcome, but you can decide how you get there. And for me, the journey and how I got there was more important than trying to control the variables and knowing the small percentage of that variable of the outcome. And for me, it was more important to stay convicted to what was true to me in that process. And it was beautiful for us. And we're very grateful, and we don't take for granted that there could have been complications, but this was our experience, and it was something we would wish a lot more people could experience than the traditional didn't get the experience out of it. So I just think there is hope for people in other ways.
Yeah, there's more. Yeah, ask questions.
Yeah.
Always ask questions because you have more rights than you perhaps are given in an emergency situation. I want to ask.
And if you need a midwife, mate, just call Damo.
Damo.
Please do. No. How did it make you feel as a woman? Like going, just doing the natural way. I wanted to know that. How do you feel as a woman?
I don't know if it's a woman thing or a Michaela thing. It's just in my nature to go after what I want. And so it felt right for me to do it. I don't, and because it's my personality, I don't think it actually made me feel puffed up about anything or more empowered. I think I'm aware of my own power, and I think that's why I was able to do what we did, because I'm sure about, I don't know, who I am, my decisions, my place in life. It's just part of who I am. So I'm fortunate to have that confidence. Thank you for asking.
Should we leave it there?
Yeah.
That was awesome, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We got to go out with your slogan, mate. Is it peace, love and veggies?
No, before we go out, we had a friend that highlighted, this is banger for your podcast, the meaning of soul is peace. And Esme's meaning of her name is beloved, so love. We've got peace and love. Someone said if we have a third baby, we're going to name it Kale.
If this ever goes to air and you are listening, I would love to just, I don't know, it'd be funny to see if you can comment what we should name.
What we should name our third child to get the slogan in check.
Yeah, because that would be epic. And this is by coincidence I'm wearing the shirt, by the way.
Yeah.
It's funny.
I love it, mate.
That is great, yeah.
Peace, love and veggies.
That was Lily. Yeah,
That was
shout out to
Lily.
Lily. She
Yeah.
was awesome. Thank you. Thanks, guys. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Thanks, Trav, for bringing your whole studio here.
No worries, mate.